Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jessica, what am I supposed to pound on? Actually, that was louder than on the wood. Okay. Well, welcome. Those gathered tonight are at the City Hall Council Chambers at 10 West State Street. Today's date's April 25, 2022. The time's 5:30 p.m. and we are here for a regularly called City Council meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order with this notice to the public. The mayor and council welcome comments from the public during discussion of the items on the agenda. You're required to step to the mic, state your name and address for the record, limit your time to 3 minutes so others may be given an opportunity to speak as well. If you are at the mic, speak clearly and direct your comments to the mayor and city council and not to any councilor specifically. It's at the discretion of the mayor and council to respond to specific questions and comments or to have staff respond during the meeting. With that said, those who are able, please join us on the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Hoop.
Here.
Isom.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Lottiehoff.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Very good. Got a full house tonight. And before soliciting any mayor, council, or administrative comments, let's do years of service in April. Will the chiefs please come forward?
Yeah, bring the kids with you.
Good evening. Mike Tupper, Marshalltown Police Department. So tonight, I have the pleasure of recognizing Detective Dane Bowermaster for 10 years of outstanding service with the city of Marshalltown. So Dane started with the police department about the same time I did. So we've been here about the same amount of time. And I will tell you that in the time that I've been here, I've been responsible for a lot of different decisions, and Gary Thompson probably say some questionable ones. But hiring Dane is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So Dane is just one of the best police officers I have ever been around. When it comes to case law, he's your man. If I had a big case that needs worked on, he's one of the people I'm going to go to. Dane, in addition to being a detective, also serves on our tactical team. And he's just a well-rounded, quality professional. And he's also just a great guy. And we are so lucky to have people like Dane Bowermaster working for the Marshalltown Police Department. And our future is extremely bright because of young men and women like Dane. So I just want to say, Dane, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations on 10 years. And I hope you can put in another 25 more at least. He's doing a great job. Thank you, Dane.
All right.
I feel like I have to say something here. I appreciate the kind words. I'm not really one for words at all. I'd rather be working. I kind of just like working under the scenes, doing that. I even said something to my wife tonight about maybe getting called out. I won't have to go to this, but I told the chief I would. So here we are. Like I said, I appreciate the kind words. As everybody in Marshalltown here, you have an extremely proficient police department. The command staff here, I would argue, is second to none. You have very good leadership. You have lots of excellent skills. And I honestly haven't had a better job that I've worked for. I've never worked for better people than I've worked for here. So to Chief Tupper, everybody at the police department, I just want to say thank you. It's been a fun 10 years, and I look forward to the next 22.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Christopher Cross. I'm the Deputy Chief of the Fire Department. And it is my honor to introduce you to, let me see what his name is, Jeremy Weirman. So Jeremy, we hired Jeremy like right after I started at the fire department as well. So I've been here about 6 years or so. Jeremy was one of the first hires that I was involved with as a member of the command team of the fire department. And I've been through a lot of interviews, and I've interviewed a lot of people as a chief fire officer. And I don't think I've ever quite seen somebody so nervous in an interview, just sweat vibrating just from nerves. But I tell you what, it is one of the best things that we ever did as the Chief Ryerson and I as a team is to hire this guy. He's a great dude. He's a great firefighter. I look forward to seeing what he's capable of as leadership flips over. He's definitely destined to do great things with us. Not that he's not already doing it, but he's an excellent employee. He's a good guy to have around. He's an excellent family man, and we are very lucky, and I'm happy to introduce him to you. You probably don't even know who he is. He's a behind-the-scenes guy, and he really makes our department great. So it's my honor to recognize your 5 years of service, man. Congratulations.
I'll say thank you like he did. I'm even worse with words than the gentleman over there, so I'd just really like to thank all you guys for giving me the opportunity to work for the city of Marshalltown, and also Chief, thanks for the kind words again. And it's been an honor to work for you guys, and I look forward to, I think I got like 27 more years.
We're thankful for that.
Well, thank you. And to the significant others and the families out there, we know these jobs require special hours, special stress. It's a family deal, and so we appreciate that from the family standpoint too. And then I should tell you too, I know people who come here for these things feel like they have to stick around until 10:30 at night. You really don't have to for the rest of the meeting. So you've been recognized. If you want to go, you can. I don't want to dissuade you from sticking around, but you don't have to be here. Anyway, thank you for your service, and thanks, Chiefs, for doing that. Okay. Does anybody up here wish to make any comments before we go on to the consent agenda? First, anybody in the council?
Yeah, I'll make a comment if that's
Sure.
okay.
You
So, again, Cleaniac, the cleanup week is the first full week in May, the main day, the Saturday, the 7th, I believe. And so if anybody's interested in getting a group together, helping out, if you could message us on Facebook at Cleaniac, I'll set you up with someplace to clean. Thanks.
Very good. That's not a bad follow-up to the downtown cleanup that had pretty good results. So we just need to keep that type of thing going. Ms. Kinzer.
Yes, so I believe that we'll be getting this out hopefully more publicly sometime this week, but JBS has agreed to allow us to use their parking lot on the north side of Marion for another community cleanup day, which would be Saturday, May 21st, hours to be determined. This is where we have the large roll-off dumpsters, and I just need to make sure things work for stone sanitation that day. And so look forward hopefully for some information coming out about that event on Saturday, May 21st.
Very good. It seems like it's spring cleanup time, although we did get that weather advisory today that there is a freeze notice tonight for those of us that hooked up our hoses. And I guess if you have the underground watering, you ought to think about turning those off too. That is, well, I guess let me make a comment too. Over the weekend, we had another one of those events. The American Cancer Society and the Eye River Hospice had the Night of Stars event. You could not have fit another person in the event. It was our table. We were supposed to be an 8-person table. There were 10 of us around it. They raised over $81,000 for those two major causes in town here. It was just a remarkable thing. And I like to brag about the fact if I'm out of town or giving an interview to people, I'd like to brag about the fact that if you have a good idea in this town and you got the right people behind it, the people and the money both show up and for good causes. And that was another example of that. So that was Saturday night's event. Okay. Unless anybody else wants to speak, let's go on to the consent agenda. I would ask for a motion to approve it, but I've had one of the counselors ask that we remove items 11 and 14 from it. So is there a motion to approve the rest of the agenda, consent agenda besides those items 11 and 14?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Very good. Let's call the roll.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie-Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Very good. That go ahead and read those at will.
Approve the minutes for the April 11th, 2022 meeting and a bill list in the amount of $1,705,105.72. Approve the liquor license renewals for Zeno's at 109 East Main Street, Fiddle and Whistle at 20 West Main Street, City of Marshalltown Veterans Memorial Coliseum at 20 West State Street, Center Street Station at 19 North Center Street, and the Spa at 217.5 North 13th Street. Approve March 22 financial statements. Resolution authorizing the use of council-designated local option sales tax for Civic Plus website enhancements. Resolution authorizing the use of council-designated local option sales tax for the production of a police fire recruitment video for the city of Marshalltown. Resolution to certify the schedule of assessments against properties with unpaid bills for collection with taxes. Resolution transferring funds for the fiscal year 22 through March 31st, 2022. Resolution approving contract change order number 1 for the State Street Storm Sewer Repair Project number SMW 21003, an increase of $53,485. Resolution ordering construction of the State Street Reconstruction Project STR 21004, setting public hearing on proposed plan specifications, form of contract and estimated cost, and directing publication of notice to bidders. Resolution rejecting all bids for the sewer cleaning contract project in the city of Marshalltown, Iowa. Resolution ordering construction of the 2020 sanitary sewer rehabilitation CIPP project SAN 21001, setting public hearing on proposed plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost, and directing publication of notification to bidders. Resolution approving an agreement with Marshall County related to the reimbursement of survey costs for the sale of property.
Aren't you glad you took that speed reading class? Let's go on to the items we removed then, the first one of which is number 11. What is that one? And I'll call for a motion.
Resolution setting a public hearing on the conveyance and transfer of title of city-owned lot at 308 South 7th Avenue.
Is there a motion to approve that one?
So moved, Your Honor.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Mr. Thompson, I'll give you the lead.
I just, this is going to go through, obviously. My disagreement is not with the person purchasing the land or agreeing to purchase the land. He wants it. He's agreed to the price. I just question that, as I said previously, that I don't like the idea that the county's assessed value is what we're using as fair market value. Those are definitely two different things, and I'm not so sure if the council shouldn't get involved in that and set that policy on what fair market value is moving forward, because I know we have a lot more lots to sell. So voting no simply because I don't like the high inflated price that this person's paying for it. So thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Any other counselor wish to speak? Anybody in the public wish to address this one? Let's call the roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
Very good. That carried. Let's go to number 14. What's that one?
Resolution approving release and settlement agreement with Corrado Homes LLC, DBA Corrado Construction.
Move for approval, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Very good. Discussion again?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, as that one lawyer said to me in that one meeting, lawyers love principled people like me. I don't like settlements when we did nothing wrong. So I'll be voting no on this one. That, obviously it puts a close to this issue. However, I just don't believe in reaching settlements when, in my opinion, the city was not at fault. So thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Any other council discussion about that one? Any public comment? As a lawyer, I'll keep my mouth shut on that one, but it wasn't I that said that. Let's call the roll.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks. On to item F, motions. What's our first one of those?
Motion to approve a new Class C liquor license for Adelina's Grill at 101 North Center Street.
That's the one we can see right out the window here, isn't it?
Yes.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve that?
Second, Your Honor.
Very good. Discussion on this one.
Yes, Your Honor. This is a new restaurant with new ownership. They are scheduled to open on May 1st, so they have a new liquor license, Class C.
Wow. That's coming up next week, hey? Good. Be nice to have that back open too. Okay, any discussion about this one? I don't expect public discussion unless the owners are here and like to address it. Let's call the roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Very good, that one carried as well. And the next motion.
Motion to approve a new Class C beer permit for the Family Dollar Store number 22186 at 327 South 3rd Avenue.
Anybody want to jump in with a motion?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion?
This is a new application for beer sales at the Family Dollar Store.
Any counselor wish to comment? Or anybody in the public? Roll call.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
That one carried as well. And the third and last one.
Motion to approve the outdoor service area for Midnight Ballroom LLC at 1501 South 17th Avenue.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion?
Louisa Ortega is opening a new reception hall facility at 1501 South 17th Avenue. She's in the process of completing her application for her liquor license, and the council must approve her outdoor service area. So she wanted to bring that before the council before she completed her application, just so we know it can move forward as proposed.
Thank you. And attached to the agenda, we do have a map that was drawn of where that will be. Okay, discussion up here?
Does Chief Tupper have any concerns with something being outside like this?
I'm not concerned with her application or the fact that she's attempting to do this. We've allowed this to happen at other locations. I always prepare for the worst and hope for the best when it comes to outdoor events where alcohol is served, and Ms. Ortega's been good to work with, so we'll continue to work with her. And from my standpoint, I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Other council comments? Otherwise, open to the public. It's open to the public. And let's go ahead and vote.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Oh.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. On to item G, resolutions. What's our first one?
Resolution approving the purchase of 0.6 acres of 1314 Summit Street at a cost of $15,000.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Very good. Discussion?
Jeff Hubbard, Parks and Rec Director. As you know, we're getting ready to start working on Phase 2 of West End Park, and that includes building a restroom concession building. It's always kind of been in the design to be next to the futsal court. I was in negotiations with the previous owner about a year and a half ago. I will admit I kind of let the ball drop because they weren't kind of in need to have that land right away. And so in the meantime, he has sold the property to someone else. We have reached that new homeowner, and they're willing to sell us 0.6 acres is what we need. So basically, it'll level off the futsal court fence on the back side of their property, give them the same size lot as their neighbor, which is actually what they're looking forward to. If you look at the back portion there, it's pretty tall and weedy and overgrown trees, so we would clear that up and would give us the space to put in our building as well as some additional parking.
Any council comments or questions about that?
So would you connect by going down North 14th, like you're going to the the ball diamond down there? Is that how you get to the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay.
So we would just be able to expand the existing parking lot that's there now.
Nice.
I was there for one event last summer that was well attended, and that was the first time I saw that there might be that kind of a need for extra parking. That area sure is getting a lot of use now too. Well, if it ever gets nice out again here. Any other council comments or questions? If not, let's open it up to the public. Okay, let's call the roll.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
That carried as well. Hope to see people back on those futsal courts when it warms up a little bit here too. They sure got a lot of use last summer. All right, next item.
Public hearing and resolution approving plan specifications, form of contract, and cost for the Edward Street Extension Project number STR 19003.
Open for a motion.
So moved, Your Honor.
Oh, public
Oh,
hearing.
sorry,
Oh,
public
that's where I have to check my ability to tell time.
I know I ruined it.
You know, if I go to digital, I'm okay. What did you say? Look at the bottom, and there we are. 5:50 p.m. According to the big computer here, is the time the meeting is now open to the public. And did the clerk receive any written comments about this?
No, Your Honor.
It is now time for public comment about it. Not seeing anybody rush to the mic. Now we go to staff review.
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. This project is to extend Edgewood Street to the east from its existing termination. It will extend into city-owned ag land, and then it'll be a new north-south connector for North 8th Ave. This is going to open up 45 acres of industrial development. It'll also improve some truck traffic in the northeast portion of town as well. The cost estimate is just over $6.5 million. We have planned funding through the Lost Contribution, ARPA funds, RISE, US EDA, and then Marshalltown Waterworks as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, any from the public? Very good, good work on that, Heather. Let's call the roll. Oh, no, I need a motion now.
We need to close the hearing
Oh,
first.
you know, I've even got a cheat sheet up here. Although it's far enough away now, I may need to adjust my trifocals. We have council comments. Declare the public hearing is now closed at 5:52 p.m. Then we can solicit a motion.
Move for approval, Your Honor.
Thank
Second.
you. Second. Let's call the roll.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. I swear, you know, I've only got 3 years and 8 months left as mayor. By the time I'm done, I should have that stuff down pretty well. On to, let's see, ordinances.
Ordinance 15040 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, repealing Code Section 130.003, Assemblies, Parades, and Demonstrations, and adopting a new Code Section 130.003, Public Use and Special Event Permits, second reading.
Time to call for a motion to approve it.
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
And discussion.
Just as a reminder, this is a revision updating the title of this ordinance and moving the approval process to the city clerk's office and adding language for the special events trailer.
Questions or comments by the council? Anything from the public? Roll call on this one too.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell.
Yes.
Okay, and the last action item for the night is the final second ordinance. What's that one about?
Ordinance 15041 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, Chapter 118, Peddler, Solicitors, Transient Merchants, first reading.
Anybody wish to move to approve it?
So moved, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion on this one.
Yes, this is the action moving forward from the last couple meetings discussion that we had to amend the time restrictions to 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. for Peddler and Solicitors. It removes the 7-day calendar restriction on transient merchants and also creates a 24-hour public use permit for transient merchants to operate on public property.
Very good. Time for council comments or questions.
Just a question, Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, we are moving forward with they can be on Main Street, right?
Correct.
Okay. At the request of that specific business in front, they'll be parked in front.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, the mic is open for public comment. I don't see anybody standing or running up to the mic. Let's call the roll.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottie Hoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Carried as well. Very good. Now we segue into discussion items, the first one of which is the Riverview Park Master Plan and presentation. Casey Byers of Bolton and Mink is here to tell us about that. Welcome back, Casey.
Thank you. Good evening. This is a project that we've been working on for several months now. Really came at the events of the derecho and kind of the change that was brought to Riverview Park and the consideration for future improvements that city staff had been thinking about within the park, even really before the events of the derecho, but that weather event certainly solidified the need to kind of take a comprehensive approach to looking at park improvements for the entire facility. So just to kind of touch on, just the current condition, there's a lot of beauty out in this park. The history of the park, it certainly has a different character than a lot of your other city parks. You kind of have this connection back to nature. You have the lagoon there that in its current condition doesn't look that enticing, but it has a certain amount of beauty there. Some of the buildings, the log cabin, just the work that's on that building, the limestone, the different materials, it just has a really unique vernacular that you can't find in your other parks. So when we started looking at this project, we really wanted to really understand just the history of the facilities, the grounds itself, and really just kind of take in some of the special places that make Riverview Park unique. Circling back on our research, a master plan was actually completed over 40 years ago, thinking about a lot of the same things that we're thinking about today. So this was actually a pretty interesting read, and Jeff Hubbard actually found these kind of in the archives and handed these over to us. So we were able to kind of go through this and look at some of the recommendations in there. And quite honestly, it's a little hard to see in this black and white hand rendering, but there's a lot of things in this plan that are very similar to the same kind of concepts that we started coming up with. And really the analysis of the park and its facilities, a lot of similarities to the things that we discovered as well. Most notably in here, there was mention of expanding the lagoon to increase the amount of space for stormwater detention, and the need to reduce flooding and all these other things. And that expanded detention area, that expanded wet pond, is very similar to the concept that we ended up deriving. So, expanded community event space, improved campground amenities, these are all things that are that kind of resonated with us. So looking back on some of the history of the park and the conditions over the years, these were photos that were collected during the city's kind of public input process for the park. So a series of meetings were had to get input on what the park ought to become, allowed community members to share stories about the park history, certain events in time that resonated with people. So these images are directly from that process. And they really speak to the unique facilities, the unique equipment that used to be in the park. Some of this you would probably never be able to find in a playground anymore, but these were the things that people remembered about Riverview Park and what made this a really special place. So the airplane that was out there that had a slide built into it. There was a truck, I think a tractor out there. Really cool pieces of play equipment that really made this park special. You can see there in the upper right photo too, we know that
this is an area of flooding, and when the levee was put in to help reduce that, that had a significant impact on the park, and it kind of presented the irony in the name of Riverview Park, right? Because now you no longer have a view of the river, other than our little lagoon that we have in the middle of the park. So when we started this process, we started digging into some of the circulation of the park, evaluating the existing facilities, looking at where improvements could be made. But it was really important for us to try to preserve some of the character and integrity of the existing park, knowing that it's gone through so much change over the last several years. So we started actually by taking a drone flight of the entire park and getting a high-res aerial. And at the time that we did that, it was in the fall, and we were able to map out where all the dead trees were. We were also able to map out where a lot of the mature oaks were. So a lot of the trees, like the ash trees and other things that drop their leaves right away, we were able to actually see where those were, so we could kind of map out areas of preservation and where we wanted to make sure that we kind of designed around some of the mature trees. We certainly want to preserve as many of those as we can in any future development, but there's a lot of improvements that need to be made out here from both a circulation standpoint, but also just a grading and drainage standpoint. The site is so flat that any little depression out here ends up holding water. So we developed two different concepts very early on, really just loose diagrammatic sketches, looking at how you could improve the campground areas, how we could expand detention, potentially integrating some event space, and making improvements to circulation throughout the park. Based on the public input that the Parks Department and city staff received, that festival grounds and having an established place to have big community events was one of the #1 things that people wanted to see out here, along with improving the aesthetics and the infrastructure of the campground as well as the dog park. So looking at these two concepts individually, the first concept we actually looked at adding some additional pedestrian circulation through the park, as well as creating a kind of a vehicular loop through the park. On two instances I was out here last fall, I saw people literally just kind of strolling through in their vehicles. They would kind of go down one road, they'd turn around, they'd go out the park, they'd come down the other one, and they would just kind of drive through the park. And so we wanted to kind of mimic that experience and try to create a little more effective circulation through the park rather than kind of these dead-end streets or these dead-end routes. So you'll see that kind of in the main area off to the right of the screen. We've created a vehicular loop to get people through the park into these different destinations. Here we just looked at modifying the circulation a bit. One of the big changes here is we were trying to kind of operate within the confines of the existing roadway network in the campground, looking at some different ways you could organize campsites, potentially integrate some pull-through campsites, and looked at kind of dividing up the pond area into kind of separate detention areas, maybe bringing in some culverts and things rather than pedestrian bridges. So really just trying to present some very different options to city staff. One thing that's important to note about both of these concepts is we're looking at adding significant amount of stormwater detention in Riverview Park. There was a report done in the early 90s about expanding the detention to reduce flooding across Woodland. And fast forward, 30 years with new stormwater data and rainfall data, the need for that expanded detention is even greater. So we looked at where we could increase the wet pond capacity, but also plan in some kind of low-lying detention areas for the larger rain events, and utilize, again, that kind of leftover space and the area that maybe isn't doesn't have a lot of mature oak trees and old growth trees residing in them now. So you'll see that the amount of blue on here is pretty significant compared to the existing lagoon. But again, this is a concept that is 40 years in the making, and is certainly not a new idea here.
So I got a question out of curiosity as we're
Yep.
looking at the proposed plan and community space. Do we really think that 284 spots as far as a large gathering really suffices from what we would hope to get there? I mean, if we say 2 to 3 people in a car from a family perspective or whatever on average, we're talking not that big of an event. If I just compare it to Harvest Market and what we typically get on 13th Street, it doesn't seem like a lot of parking spots.
So one of the things, and I'll mention this when I get to the preferred concept, is about how we're thinking through the actual roadway network and the circulation. Because one of the things that we're looking at is potentially utilizing the loop as a one-way loop for events. So during events with traffic control, we could turn that into a one-way circulation and actually use parallel parking along the road as well.
And before you switch maps, I was trying to find where was the potential new bathhouse number 10. I haven't been able to spot it. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
right in the middle of the campground.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So we started thinking through just the vision for the concept plan, and thinking about materials and artwork. Trying to be respectful of the surroundings and the aesthetic of some of the existing buildings, particularly the log cabin. Trying to use materials and forms that respond well to that, and kind of respect just the nature and the raw character of the park itself. Thinking about the user experience, there's certainly a pedestrian bridge out there that could stand to be replaced. The playgrounds, I think this is an opportunity to create more of a destination playground for Marshalltown. Thinking back to the history of the play equipment that was there, there's ways that I think you could bring back some of that same character and some of the elements that were intriguing back then. You can incorporate similar features into a playground here and make it really a unique destination. Like I mentioned, we all know how flat it is out there, so utilizing some topography and kind of building that into the play structures itself, I think is a really neat opportunity that you could have here. And then lastly, thinking about just how to gather people together. Again, looking at the form of a pavilion that is unique to the destination, could potentially play off some of the forms of the log cabin and some of the other structures out here. But again, relying on heavy timbers and raw steel, and just kind of staying with that same vernacular. So after we reviewed the 2 concept plans with city staff and looked at kind of the pros and cons of each plan, this was ultimately what I refer to as the preferred concept plan. So again, starting on the west side of the park with the campground, we looked at reducing the overall number of campsites, but creating a much nicer campsite. So right now, when you go out there, there's kind of these kind of shared sites, if you will. There's also some sites that are kind of in the interior of the campground, which are somewhat hard to find and somewhat hard to get to. But any future campsites would be full hookups for RVs, with potentially a few additional tent sites for people that don't necessarily need the full RV site. But just really cleaning up the use of space, eventually integrating a new bathhouse and some new facilities in there would certainly complement the campground really well. In the middle there, you have the expanded lagoon. So if you get a chance to refer back to that plan from 1979, the shape and form of this wet pond is quite similar to what was developed 40 years ago. And then you can see kind of on the north end up against the levee, we have those areas for expanded detention, which would allow additional stormwater management in higher events. Down around the reunion hall and the community building, not really seeing any significant changes there, with the exception of eventually upgrading those two playgrounds. There's essentially three play areas in the park today. We recommend kind of keeping that number and having 3 in the future, but picking one of those and making it really that destination playground. So you can see on the right side here, this is where we have our loop road coming through the park. So we're envisioning this as being a two-way road, but during community events with traffic control, you could turn this into a one-way loop and actually use a portion of this for parallel parking to pick up some additional parking areas. We are showing an expanded parking facilities, both at the log cabin, but as well as kind of at the main festival grounds, as well as expanding the parking area up by the existing tennis courts, and then over by the dog park area. I think one thing that's really nice about kind of where we ended up with the pedestrian circulation is that you get a really nice pedestrian loop that would take you all around the park. It would take you across the pond at 2 different locations and allow you to really experience the majority of the park space. We know that there's existing disc golf holes out here that have seen some disruption from the recent weather events over the years, and through these changes, we would need to look at rerouting some of those disc golf holes, and we think that there's actually an opportunity on the north side of the levee to actually utilize some of that low-lying space along the river, as well as kind of in the northeast corner of the park grounds, which would open up opportunities for some additional disc golf holes there. And then lastly, over at the dog park, we think that there's an opportunity to add a shelter here, still define small and large dog areas, but add some additional amenities there to make that a better user experience for people that are using the dog park. So with all this, all these improvements and expanding the wet pond, you could see just how blue that water becomes when it's all built. So that creates a much more user-friendly experience. But in all reality, there's significant opportunities for water quality improvements out here, both managing just the quantity of the water and the volume, but really improving the quality of it. So this could potentially be an area for fishing. We've been talking with Heather about the necessity to make this deep enough to potentially hold fish year-round. It's certainly large enough where we could do that, and potentially have some paddle sports, have canoeing and kayaking in here as well. This is just a shot looking up toward kind of the north end of the park, looking toward the tennis court area. One of the requests during the input process was to establish some pickleball courts in town, and this could be a good area to do it and have that right next to your existing tennis facility. You can kind of see up in here, you got the expanded pond in the background. This is the trailhead area to the levee trail. You can see here we have another pedestrian bridge that would be added on the north end to get people across the pond up here. We've shown a roundabout in here as an opportunity to really improve some vehicular circulation and kind of better manage kind of where these different vehicular access routes come together. And then this is a shot across the what we're calling the festival grounds. You can see in the bottom left here is where we have that introduced parking area. Potentially some bioretention areas here at the end of the parking area, and then our pedestrian routes, as well as potentially some food truck parking here immediately adjacent to the parking lot. And then out here, we envisioned an events pavilion, something that's architecturally significant and is really eye-catching, but allows some pretty big events and just creates a really nice venue for concerts and different festivals in the community. So that is the Riverview Park Master Plan update.
Very good, thank you. Any input from the council first?
Your Honor, I have a few questions. So I don't play disc golf, but I play golf.
Yep.
I know there's a pretty avid disc golfing community in town, and from what I've heard from them is that our disc golf course pre-derecho was fairly highly renowned in the state. And I was wondering if there's any plans to talk with some of the professional disc golfers in the Midwest about chiming in on course design or something like that. I know in real golf that's something everybody's proud of is who designed their course. So maybe there's that kind of opportunity as well.
Sure. And I, not to speak for Jeff, but I know there's been significant input from that community here.
Boy, it has been getting a lot of use the last couple of summers.
Yeah,
especially
Jeff
last
Hubbard,
summer.
Park Rec Director. We held public meetings with the public out at Riverview, but we actually held a special meeting just with the disc golfers. And I think about 8 or 10 of them showed up, and we talked to them, about the need for the change, why there was a change. They understood that, the holes aren't the same that they used to be. So they'll definitely be involved in the process of this new course layout.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I got a question. So we talked about reduction in campsites too. What's our current usage rate over the last few years? I know we've had some year changes, but I mean, in general, what's the usage rate?
Yeah, we have close to the 80 spots out there, and I would say on a normal weekend, we're at 30-40% capacity. On our busy weekends, like 4th of July, Memorial Day, we're maybe at 70-80% capacity. So we definitely aren't using all of our spots.
I guess I'm in full support of making that a fishing pond, by the way. I think that'd be great.
Your Honor. Hey, Casey, what's the acreage of the expanded pond that looks like the Loch Ness Monster?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or a dinosaur?
Yeah, it is a dinosaur. No.
Do you know what the acreage is of that expanded?
We were targeting, I think we have right around 9 to 10 acres.
Okay. What does a kayaker want to be able to make a loop? I mean, this is big enough for kayaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Without having to go twice around, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, it's pretty good size. I mean, it's all of, you look at kind of the existing lagoon, which is the snake here.
The drainage pit.
Yeah. I mean, we're tripling the size of that.
Okay.
I think the nice thing about it is that you don't just have the big basin, but you also have a lot of length out there too.
Yeah. And you said that would run about 8 acres?
Yeah, I think
give or take. I mean.
Yeah, we looked at kind of what would be an acceptable size to try to capture with the detention improvements. We were targeting anywhere from kind of 8 to 13 acres. And we thought that kind of getting into that 10-acre range felt appropriate for the site without making significant changes to the park and, you know, compromising a lot of the other amenities. So we're thinking that, you know, we still need to kind of update some of our final stormwater calcs and our modeling, but by doing this and putting in some type of forebay to capture sediment as it comes into the pond, it creates a much nicer feature out here and significantly reduces the flooding that would happen at Woodland.
Yeah. I think the landfill is about 10 acres, the landfill pond, if you've ever been out there. And that's pretty good size.
And then the shelter at the dog park, were you thinking an enclosed shelter or an open shelter?
So this would be an open air shelter, and you would have fencing that's underneath the shelter. So you have a common point of entrance, and park users or anybody that has a membership to the dog park would have probably a keypad entrance to allow you to get into the fencing, and then from there you basically go to the small dog area or the large dog area. But it allows an accessible place to sit underneath the shelter, and you know, it's probably in the range of probably 25 to 30 by 40 feet. So it's pretty good sized shelter, but you'd be able to have a couple picnic tables underneath there, along with the divider fencing to kind of segregate the two areas.
Now, if I may, you brought up that you would have some spaces for tents. How many different spaces are we talking? 25, 30?
So we have, I think, 31 RV sites in this plan, and then I think we had 5 tent sites.
I think I'd have more tent sites than that, or areas that you could put them.
Well, I
Because
think
you get into something like a ragbri or groups coming through.
So I guess on a normal weekend, we maybe have 1 tent down there, maybe 2. If we were doing a ragbri thing, the whole festival area is going to be your tent parking or whatnot. But on a normal weekend down there might only be 1 or 2 tents down there. And usually they're associated with a camper who's setting up maybe for their kids to hang out in. We have very few lone camp, just tent campers. And if they are, they might just be there for a day or two because they're moving on to something else. You know, they're going cross country or something like that. But there would be some additional ground. I mean, if we needed to for a bigger event to put tents elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, one more question?
Sure.
Jeff, when you talked to the disc golfers, did I hear you, Casey, say that possibly putting some holes over the dike on the flat ground by the river?
Yeah, so we were looking at kind of this area up in the northeast corner of the site, trying to utilize some of that ground. I think it presents a unique experience, kind of a different surrounding, and it seems like it would be fairly conducive.
Yeah, I like that idea because, you know, it's only going to flood once a year, if at all anymore. They still play the course, you know, but when it's open, I mean, it would present a whole new challenge with down trees and the stuff that washes up.
You know, when we had this meeting, they said, you know, it would be cool to have like an elevated green per se, and I'm like, I couldn't even imagine what that was, but they actually have like a bermed hill with the basket on top, so you have to throw it at a higher level. And so if we're talking about making new unique holes, that whole space provided an opportunity to put 3, 4, 5 unique holes that are totally different and would be able to do those certain features that we just maybe can't do elsewhere in the park.
And then would they get extra points for a biker riding the bike trail on top of the dike and taking somebody out? I mean, does that score extra?
You'd have to, just like on a golf course, you know, when you drive across the road to get to the next back 9 or something like that, you would walk across and then throw your disc there.
Oh, you can't throw over.
I would not lay it out that way.
If it's just like a golf course, keep it away from the water. You know, some of us find the water a lot.
Where's the fun in that, though? You know.
The interesting thing was when the dog park went in, how quickly the dog owners raised the money and got that going, and it was expanded. I'm curious what you do with the little dogs that think they're the big dogs. I didn't know you divided up the two. Any other questions up here? Otherwise, let's hope.
I do have one more.
Okay.
Getting back to Gabe's question, what did your data show for lining that whole circle drive with cars on both sides, parallel parked? What is your maximum car capacity? And I'm assuming they'd be out on Woodland too, because like Gabe alluded to, you're talking, if this came to fruition, you're talking couple thousand people, right? From what you guys have seen on 13th Street?
I guess I would just look at Victoria, look at the size of the cars in the parking lot, and then lay that out.
Well, and so we're gonna probably be parking cars over by the Red Barn. We're gonna probably park them in the compost area.
Okay.
You know, for a big festival, we're gonna be parking them over at Carl Chevrolet or somewhere and busing people in. I mean, if we're talking about having a great band like the Pork Tornadoes and having 5,000 people there, they're gonna be coming from all over the place. So we're gonna have to bus them in from the mall probably or something like that. But we'll figure that out when we get there.
All right.
But I think there's plenty of grassy areas too around the area. My thought too is if we're having a big event, we're probably that event's gonna be renting the community building, the log cabin, and the reunion hall. So all that parking lot becomes available too. We'll find the spots for the cars.
Thanks, Your Honor.
You bet. Anybody else up here? Otherwise, let's open it to the public. Nobody's standing or rushing up, but gee, it's fun to see the concepts like this. Truly, it is a great park. Oh,
Thank you.
well, hold on.
My name is Linda Clark, lifetime resident of Marshalltown City. This is very interesting because I've been around long enough, people, that I remember riding the train that went around that park and swimming in the swimming pool that used to be there. And we call it Riverview Park. And it seems like there are plenty of places that are taking advantage of using the Iowa River. They have paddling and canoeing down from Eldora down, and people used to come down our Iowa River. I wonder if they will also make a consideration for that. Riverview Park, that's how it got its name. I remember all the flooding, all of the things, but I'm getting older, so I very much appreciate the fact of being able to drive around. We used to do that, and I'm probably one of the guilty people that I've driven up just to see what has changed. So thank you for the concept, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very good. Well, I'm excited to see one of those plans actually extended the recreational trail all the way to the bridge on Highway 14. I'll be dead and gone when this happens, but someday I want that path to go under there, along the dike on the west side behind Carl Chevrolet, through the Veterans Home, and connect up to Summit Street to make a total loop. I mean, that would be so cool for this town. Okay, let's go on to our next discussion item. That is the Destination Iowa Grant Trails, Inc.
Yes, Your Honor. I did hand this out, and so I'm going to talk about more of the bigger overview. Any technical questions, I would refer to Heather, as you will see that she is the name and the stamp on this. But I thought it was pertinent to have a conversation related to Destination Iowa, which was $100 million of funding that the governor has set aside to help support tourism in Iowa. And mentioned that it was mentioned last Monday in our joint meeting with the county, but that was certainly not the first time that we'd been having some internal conversations about what really makes sense for the different programs that they offer. And so as we kind of came down to things, I'll talk about where I think the city has the best application first, because I don't think it is in the Outdoor Tourism Fund, which is what is being proposed here tonight. So the way the funding works, $80 million is available for tourism traction, outdoor tourism, and economically significant projects. And then there's another $20 million that has been set aside for creative placemaking, which the application has not been released yet, but it's looking to fund 2 to 3 communities, basically with projects in a focused area that for a city the size of Marshalltown has to have both public and private investment at $10 million or greater. And when I looked at the CIP listing that the council had adopted with the last budget, the Lynn Creek District was really looking to be that place with a trail connecting the Freedom Rock to the skate park, a bridge that would be part of that, looking at a trailhead that would be put kind of where the skate park is, adjusting the skate park, as well as then the splash pad in the same area, and then the Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center, which is still working on fundraising for additional phases of that project as well. And just there alone, I think we're very close to 6 or 7 million. And then you look at that there is a housing development that's going to be happening there. Just doing some rough calculations, you could easily have $4 million of housing there based on what has been proposed as duplex or single family lots there. So we really think that that is what we want to come back to you with in the future, as please endorse this application for the city of Marshalltown specifically. But there's not anything released yet for us to be able to talk more specifically about that at this time. So when we thought about that, it didn't make sense that the city would have a separate project competing, because they've basically said, this is limited money, we're looking to fund one project per community. So it just didn't make sense to look things at a competing way. Marty Wymore, also with Region 6, also noted that this funding was available, and he does a lot of the work with Trails Inc. on sort of managing some of the federal and state grants that come through, and noted that we are moving forward with replacement of bridges 2 to 5, which you can see there kind of where Bridge 2 is right at Radio Tower Road. So those bridges are funded through some other funding, and those are going to go out to bid, I think, in September as part of the Iowa DOT bridge contract. But what's missing between these bridges is pavement, and for Heather's calculation, 9,400 linear feet of pavement. So when we looked at what would be possible here, things were not far off from Trails Inc. being able to meet the 60% funding committed requirement in order to apply for a $560,000 grant to get this paving completed. What's needed and where this really fits in, this would be Trails Inc. separately applying. The city would not be a co-applicant and would not be an applicant of any sort. However, they're not quite at that 60% to apply, and the first time the applications can be reviewed is May 9th. And so we wanted to get this before you tonight to request $250,000 of the $290,000 shortfall based on the $1.4 million cost estimate to really help seal the gap on this one, and to get this hopefully in front of the Iowa Economic Development Authority as a really standout application that works on a regional trail project. Certainly has benefit for the city of Marshalltown as the owner of the rail right-of-way. Creates something more than what we have, and gets it to a state of usability much sooner than we would be looking at otherwise. Trails Inc. has said that they would match or pledge to match the remaining amount, which I think we'd be looking at $50,000 roughly, $40,000 or $50,000. So that's what's before you tonight, and that is, the request really is to move a resolution forward to the next meeting, pledging $250,000 of council-designated local option sales tax to help make this project eligible to apply for the Destination Iowa funding. One more thing I wanted to point out, just because we've had a lot of conversation about council-designated local option sales tax. I asked Diana if she could go through and update some of the uses here, and there are a few to definitely highlight. We added in the website and the recruitment video, of which we knew that was going to be something coming forward and likely approved. We also went ahead and deleted the $300,000 that we had as a potential match for our FEMA reimbursement, as that's now going to be 100% or 90% covered from FEMA, 10% covered by the state. So we will not have any local dollars in. And so we've updated that, as well as including the update of the Sims company construction renovation 26 East Main Street, which was recently approved. And then Diana did pencil this in so you could see what that looks like in sort of a year-to-year comparison of where we're at. And so with that, I can turn it over to Heather if there's any technical questions that you have about the project or discussion, whatever you would prefer to do.
I'm still trying to do the math in my head about the number of miles that the linear feet.
1.78, 1.8. It probably depends how far north of Bridge 5 you're going, but I think it's about 1.8.
And I've already forgotten too. Which is Bridge 5? The neat older structure? Is that number 6?
I think number 7 is.
7.
Well, number 8 is the Our River Bridge.
Okay.
But
Okay.
bridge number 5 is one that goes across. It's frozen here, so you can't really see
Right.
how nice it looks. But this is kind of a nicer little wetland where it's a longer bridge and it goes over something that's more significant than maybe you see with some of these other bridges.
Right. And I just can't help myself but mention, I just saw this last weekend too, Albion is having a festival to help raise funds for this project up in Albion. I mean, they're getting pretty excited about having this ultimately get up there. Okay, council comments or questions?
I'd like to make some comments.
You bet.
So, as I haven't been shy, I am president of Trails Inc. I have no financial interest in Trails Inc. nor this project. I'm just an advocate of it. So, but I would really encourage the council to proceed with this. There's a whole lot of value we can unlock with this spend. It's a great opportunity in the short term. It's more than the 2.5 multiple more than a 2 times multiple in the construction expense here. It gets us, probably 1 to 2 years closer to getting to Albion, and that's when we're really going to start seeing, the momentum build behind getting this trail all the way up to Steamboat Rock and eventually connecting back to Story County one day. It's going to be a nationwide trail. This is a great opportunity for us, and I think we'd be foolish to pass it up.
Thank you. Other council comment?
So I guess curiosity, what's the, I know it's not a part of this project, what's the bridge cost? So if we talk about stranded bridges, what's the investment on the bridge portion of it?
Bridges 2 through 5 are currently under design through Calhoun Burns. Bridge 2 is actually going to be reusing one from Timber Creek Bridge and resetting it out here on new abutments. Bridges 3, 4, and 5 have about $1 million cost estimate on them.
Other council comments before we open it to the public? Okay, open to the public.
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. So we have a lot of nonprofits in town that control about $60 million in funds. Are we not able to get this $250,000 from those nonprofits? We have to get it off the back of the taxpayer. I'm just asking.
Seeing no one else come up to the microphone. Do you need council?
Your Honor, may I ask a question?
You may.
Heather, I don't know how much history you have with this since you're new to the city, but who are all the players in this just within Marshall County? I mean, does the trail go through Albion? It will go through Albion?
It will go through Albion.
And are they, have you had conversations with them about what section they're willing to fund? And
Yeah, they're working pretty hard on the trail section that goes, it was within the city of Albion.
oh, just in the city limits?
Yeah.
And then, do we go through Liscum?
I believe it's right on the edge, isn't it?
Okay. And that pretty much puts us at the county line then, once we get through Liscum.
Right, so Trails Inc. is kind of spearheading the Marshall County effort, and then there's a Hardin County group also spearheading their effort as well.
So we're if we do this, 2 years to get to Albion?
No, it'd be significantly longer than that. Kind of the estimate is, we would like a project or a phase of this project to continue every 2 to 3 years. So this would be one more phase, one more step in the process to get there.
And then how many years to when this goes over the bridges, the existing bridges are rideable? Or
no, so the first phase of this, or the current phase that's in design of this project is replacing bridges 2 through 5. That would be in construction this next calendar year. This project that we're talking about here of applying for grant funding would piggyback that project. So the bridges will already be replaced and in place for this trail to butt up against.
So, tell me again, what's the timeline that this would actually be all the way open to Bridge 5? We're looking at 3-4 years down the road then?
Potentially through this funding, we would look at design in 2023 with construction in 2024.
And if we don't get the grant, the money comes back to us.
That could always be part of your resolution.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can put whatever stipulations on the resolution that you would like to, so I think that's certainly up to you, that if that's where things are going, then you could do that. As a reminder, we're talking about a $560,000 grant, so if the grant is not awarded, I mean, I think you'd say, Jeff, that's a pretty big gap to try and fill any other way without other funds.
Yes, and that's why it would take multiple years if we don't spend this money and happen to get the grant. It's going to be stretched out multiple years, because then we're waiting on different grant opportunities through the federal DOT, state DOT, other funding programs, and there's only so much available. And it all depends what happens, both Iowa.
Does RAGBRAI have a commitment, a timeline to ride on trails all the way across the state?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
It's too far off.
I don't think you could. I think that's too big a population on a trail like this.
And just to clarify, the funds that are already committed is a federal rec trail grant to the paving, as well as then Region 6 TAP funds.
The Transportation Alternative Program, so they're both federal funds that are part of.
And they're already committed.
Yep, they've been applied for and were awarded for this project.
When would we know from the state on this?
I thought I was here in late summer.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they had 600 people on a webinar, so they've been fairly clear that they're expecting a large number of applications, and that it could be a while before they figure out, what is the project in each community that they're looking to support, and what does that do with $80 million.
The applications can start being submitted, I believe, May 9th. And it's first come, first serve. But again, there's going to be a lot of them. We hear a lot of interest. You can talk to other consultants too. They're getting a lot of interest from communities in applying for these funds. So when we met to kind of look at the city of Marshalltown and projects here, as Jessica mentioned, the city has another project that we're interested in that's part of that other pot. So we're looking for support for Trails Inc. to apply for funds here. Otherwise, the city of Marshalltown will not be applying for any of the outdoor tourism portion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet, thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if anyone has the answer to this, but last Monday we met with the county, and they made a pretty public request for the city to help the potential paving to Grimes Farm. I'm curious what the county's commitment is to this.
Well, I can answer with what I know. None. I do plan on going to the county supervisors meeting tomorrow and bringing it up in the open discussion. So we'll see what they say. Well, they won't say anything, but if they say anything, the next time.
Thank you.
Right now, if my math is right, it's about 1.8 miles paved from start to where it ends right now. So it would take us up to just about just short of 4 miles paved. So at almost an 8 mile loop. For bicycles, that's not too bad. For runners, that's a pretty good stretch. Albion already has that really nice park up there that Raymond and company put together. So when we finally get that all the way up to there, it's going to be a 6 mile each way stretch. That'll bring bikers in town to ride their 12-mile ride ultimately. But you need staff direction.
Yes, because its resolution is required for use of council designated funds. That's where we are looking for a motion and a second to bring forward a resolution to pledge the $250,000 to the May 9th meeting.
I'd make a motion that at the next council meeting, the council designate $250,000 of lost money toward the Trails Inc. project, and if the Trails project does not come to fruition, that money be returned to city coffers.
Second.
Thank you. I guess we could call for further discussion.
I have one question about that funding, Your Honor. Is there a fee? Is there a fee attached to this? Do we lose something with this grant request? I mean, is there so much to get into the pool? There is none.
No, I mean, you know, the engineering cost for the bridges was covered by a grant. Yeah, and then Heather was the one who updated the engineering expense here on the first page, and so that's what it takes, is that you have to submit an updated engineering expense, which she has provided here.
So between us, we're doing this all in-house, and there's no consultants that need to put something together for us on this?
Not for the application, but you can see that
Yeah, the mobilization. that's all.
outlined the estimated engineering survey and design and construction.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah,
That's after the fact,
Currently, we
though.
don't have a consultant on board for the trail project and future phases of the trail project. So in this interim time, until we go out for selection and get another consultant on board, we've prepared this in-house at the city.
Okay. So we're not, the reason I was asking is, if we don't get it, we don't forfeit anything of anybody's money.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sure. Any other questions like that up here at the council? Open mic again for public. You can.
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. I'm wondering how we're accounting for all the city staff time on this project and how Trails is reimbursing the city for that.
Anyone else like to chime in?
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. I would just like to add a comment in regard to this. I agree with what Mr. Eaton had stated. If this money comes back to us, if we do not get the grant, that sounds fine and dandy. But it seems to me that so many of the activities now are requiring us to pay as we go. And so myself, I do not bicycle. And so I think maybe we should be considering a little bit about those that are using this should be paying their fair share. I have to pay if I play shuffleboard over at the Coliseum, which this elderly person didn't have to do. So I just want to put that comment in. We have to watch our dollars. Thank you.
Let's call the roll.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
No. No.
Isom.
Very good. That carried. Staff has its direction. Next item for discussion is the city planner position. Who would like to start on this one? Michelle?
Good evening, Michelle Sponheimer, Housing Community Development Director. So I think, as you all are aware, Caleb Knudsen, our city planner, officially last day was on Friday. So we are now at a void in that position in my department. Currently, up until now, the position has been funded in part through grant dollars under our lead-based paint hazard reduction grant, and then in part under general fund. Prior to going out for job posting for the position, wanted to bring this to the council for consideration to fully fund that under general fund dollars. Our grant dollars with the lead grant are due to expire in September of 2023. Although we have had repetitive grants, we've often had breaks in grants at times, and that funding is certainly not guaranteed. It is a very competitive application round. So in order to ensure that this is a position that we can maintain and do a lot of the work that we have been doing related to development, grant work, especially enforcement of our new ordinance, which was approved at the last meeting. Those kind of activities, I would look for approval from the council to continue to support this, fully funded under the general fund, so we don't have to worry about a posting and recruiting for somebody that may not be funded in a permanent basis. So that is what I would request. If in agreement with that, we would go to Civil Service Commission on that position before posting, and that would be scheduled for May 10th.
Michelle, are you saying that this, we okay for council? Sorry for comment.
Sure.
So you're saying if we didn't fill this position, we would lose out on significant amounts of revenue for things we'd like to do?
I believe, yes, it will make it very hard to just continue with development. Right now, I'm filling in and will be filling in until we have this position filled. As a city, we've gone without a planner from time to time, and it's very stressful, to be real honest, to not have that. And I think as we want to grow as a community and encourage new development, it's a position we need to have.
Actually, one of our former city planners now has a new job. We've been a springboard for people, and the one up in the Twin Cities is doing well up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Other council discussion, or if not, public? Okay. Would you like staff direction, like a motion?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, to be clear, so the position already exists. What we're asking for your permission on is for us to be able to post the position, knowing that it would be changing to 100% general fund funded and would be picked up in a future budget amendment. So there's actually not a resolution or anything that would come to the next meeting. It's directing us that we can post it as a 100% general fund funded position.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Michelle, how long was Caleb with us? Just a couple of years? Or
Just a little over 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, question, why was that position partially funded by the lead grant anyway?
So
Was that position working with
Yeah.
Jackie? I mean,
Yeah, so there was work that was being completed,
Oh, okay.
environmental reviews as part of applications, going out, doing photos, checks on properties. So it's a position that over the years has often kind of been partial.
so do you envision if we continue to get the lead grant, would you go back to partially funding this position with the lead grants? Or if we do move forward today out of the general fund, do you leave it that way?
I think that we would always want to have that reservation for it to be out of the general fund for budgeting purposes, I believe. So there may be times, just like as my time, if you look at my timesheet from week to week, I have 18 different categories that I allocate things to at times. So there might be time with even in filling this position that we would say to that individual, we need you to do some work on the lead grant, and therefore those hours during that time will be allocated as such.
Okay.
So we may still see that, but we want to have that guarantee, whereas right now we're a 40-60 split, so it's pretty significant to try to overcome that balance.
So this will add to our deficit problem in the general fund.
This would be part of
Significant,
the budget moving forward,
All
is
right.
what I'm requesting. That's why we're bringing it to you.
Yeah, and to go into the impact, what we're really looking at, because, there was 60% of a position budgeted for next fiscal year, assuming hiring, I think at the first step, $20,000, which we've already talked about using revenue replacement for ARPA. And so that is how we're proposing that this would immediately sort of be funded as part of, just increasing the revenue replacement amount in the general fund for fiscal year 23.
Just for the first year.
For the first year.
Right.
Yeah, and there's still dollars that we
Right.
haven't allocated that can
Right,
be used for
right.
revenue replacement in future years.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Your Honor.
You bet. Anyone else? Any public comment? Need a motion on this one too, I suspect?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to follow the recommendation as outlined.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Let's call the roll.
Walker,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes. In your honor, may I ask a follow-up question now that we voted?
You may.
Jessica, is your staff looking at some more cost savings for the general fund? Since we're going the wrong direction with some previous votes this year, and this one especially, this will add about $40,000. Again, 20,000. So again, the first year's it's covered, but moving forward, we've got 20,000 more now we got to pick up.
Yeah, so I mean, that's going to be a future discussion. There's
Okay,
really
all
one
right.
left, one revenue source left untapped that does require a
Yeah.
larger council discussion.
I don't want a lot of details because it wasn't posted on the agenda. I just, we're impacting the general fund, which, okay, thank you.
Constantly, yeah.
Thanks, Your Honor.
You're welcome. And since we did have a vote on it before moving on to the next time, I can't think of a time we could use a city planner more than now with all of the things we have going on with our Highway 14 and the downtown development and State Street and that sort of thing. I mean, there have been some times in the past where you kind of skated without a city planner, but if we ever needed one, it's now, truly. So I sure appreciate the vote of confidence on that one. All right, next item is discussion of dogs at public events.
Mike Tupper, Marshalltown Police Department, and you give me the big issues. All the big things talked about.
We're just trying to throw you a bone.
Yeah. Good one. Good
All
one.
right.
So this is one of those issues where I'm darned if I do, darned if I don't. But for several years, we've had a rule in effect that people can't bring their dogs to public events. And it's become kind of archaic. And I think if you go to public events around Iowa, you'll see that dogs are frequently allowed at these events. And I don't know where these people find these dogs, because my dog is so misbehaved, I would never bring my dog to a public event. But that's probably because I spoil her too much and she doesn't listen to me. But I just think we're, at this time, it's in our best interests, and it would be a nice thing for public events if we got rid of this rule. And if people choose to bring their dogs to public events and the event organizers are cool with that, we'll let them do it. If the event organizers don't want dogs at events, they can still do that. They can have that rule, but it's their job to enforce it. So you frequently hear me over the last couple of years say we ask our police officers to do too much, and we do. And when we're at public events and somebody has a dog and now everybody's giving us the stink eye because we're not doing something about it, or we try to do something about it and now we got this big verbal brouhaha over something petty, it just puts our cops in a bad spot. And I really don't want them to be there. And they got better things to do, by the way. So my recommendation would be that we change the rules and allow public events to allow dogs if they choose, or if again the event organizer doesn't want dogs, they can still make that decision, but it's on them to enforce those rules. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, time for questions by the council.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Having worked the harvest market a number of times, I got other stuff to worry about as a volunteer up there. We're banning a lot of the shuffling of dogs back out of the event and otherwise. I agree with the move. I think from an event it makes sense. Going down to Des Moines, got some of them that have dogs and some that others, as we've talked, and I think this is an appropriate move to help drive focus in areas of greater importance. So I don't see an issue with this, at least from my participation in other events in town.
Yes, sir.
I totally agree with this. I just hope that the event planners, if they have to get a permit or something like that, they do any advertising, please advertise if it's pro-dog, against having dogs there, or something like that, so people just know, so there's not any kind of conflict.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Your Honor.
Yes.
This is long overdue. I remember when this was instituted, and it was set up for failure on the police departments. So what I would ask Chief is, bring us all those ordinances that we have enacted or previous councils have enacted that, like I've said a million times, if we're going to have an ordinance, enforce it. If it can't be enforced, then let us know. Come to us. Don't wait this long on this one, because this one it's a nightmare. So I support taking the signs down downtown all over and repealing this one.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate Councilman Thompson's comments on ordinances that can't be enforced. It's well said, and I agree wholeheartedly. I have a little bit of a different twist on why I'm so in favor of this. It's because I shake my head at the way society has overstated the roles dogs have in our lives. And this creates an argument because people feel as though every dog's a service dog. It's as important as their child. I have 2 dogs. I love them, but I appreciate that it takes the the pain point away from your officers and puts it on the responsibility on the organizer. I think it'll make for better communication and it'll clear some things up.
Any other counselor wish to comment?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of this. Sorry, it seems like we're going to be inviting the problem crowd to bring their dogs. I just think that the problem may get worse. I hope it doesn't. Gary or Mike, do you guys remember why this was enacted in 2008? Was there an incident? I guess, Mike, you probably weren't here. But
Yeah, this was before my time.
There was a bite, and it was an argument of who was in charge. And so, but the problem I have is, Oktoberfest takes over the whole downtown. So legally, how do you ban a person from walking their dog on a public sidewalk? Yeah. I mean, like I said, this thing was just, I'm not going to Oktoberfest. I'm walking my dog on a public sidewalk, but I'm going through the parade route. It's just
down the street.
Yeah.
Animal Rescue League.
Yeah. It's just, and now, especially what complicates it is the laws have changed to broaden these service dogs. Yeah. So they don't have to be, well, it used to be the old days. You knew what a service dog was. Now you don't know.
I don't want to take anything away from our local farmers market, but the one down in Des Moines draws big crowds, and there are a lot of dogs down there. And then we have a home down in Austin, Texas, and dogs are everywhere. I mean, in dining, in the grocery stores and restaurants, it's just kind of a thing in that city. But they have danger. As the chief and I know, he was going to be a witness in a case where a woman lost her nose by a dog bite in town here. So we still have regulations that can be enforced if they're off leash.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is this a resolution or is this an ordinance that'll come back to us?
It would be both. It would probably be the ordinance to completely remove the section that's there, as well as then just a resolution formally repealing that 2008 resolution, just so there's a clear tracking for both actions that had happened in the past.
Does this one this one doesn't require public hearing, does it?
No.
So we could do the resolution one meeting and then do the ordinance and waive the next meeting?
Yeah, so I would recommend that the resolution be on the May 9th meeting for council consideration, because what that does is really sets out the events. And so if you don't have any events identified, this still allows time for the ordinance to be done at 3 readings if that's what the council would like to do.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor.
Anyone else up here at the council before we open it to the public? Okay, open to the public.
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. We have always had the ordinance that the person was responsible for the conduct of their dog and required to be leashed. And I feel we need to have that leashing, otherwise everyone's going to just let their dogs run willy-nilly, and there will be dog fights and people fights and all kinds of things. We can't totally get rid of some responsibility for the you in public. And that is my comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I knew she was coming.
Wendy Reisinger, 507 Woodbury, also Vice President of the Heart of Iowa Kennel Club here in Marshalltown. I'd like to see public events have dogs with responsible owners that have been properly trained. See me after the meeting, Tucker. I'll show you. I also have 2, possibly 3 therapy dogs. I've been in obedience training for 10 years. Yes, I've been at a lot of public events here. I've seen a lot of dogs up here. Some that have internet bought service harnesses on. There are proper dogs up at the events. You cannot ask, you can just say, what does your dog perform the service for you? Just like any landlord-tenant. If it is an emotional support, they're allowed. You can't discriminate against those dogs. My dogs are just my pets. When I enter a nursing home or in a parade, they are under control. That's why I've been in class for 10 years. And I'm still in class 12 years later. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still waiting for a refund from when we took our yellow lab in for that kind of training.
Your Honor, I just have one last comment to make about Councilman Schneider's comment about how dogs are more important than children. I think Councilman Isom, in about 6 months, will let us know, if the child takes precedent over the dogs or if the dogs still are number 1 and 2.
Depends on if she's waiting at the door not to go outside, not inside.
Are you talking about the dog or the kid? Oh, no, I'm not going there. Okay. Anybody else like to comment on this one? Do you feel like you have staff direction, or do you need a motion for that?
I'm comfortable with the staff or with the discussion direction.
Yeah, good. I would be too. Okay, on to the 5th and last item of discussion, and that's the urban tree utility public tree management fee.
Yes, so there's been a little bit of a change on this one and where we can go. So there were kind of at our what would have been our March 28th council meeting, we talked about 2 things. We talked about the compost fee. The council direction was to move forward with putting a $1.50 compost fee on each water bill, less commercial, moving forward starting July 1st. So that is okay. We can do that. That's not a problem. So that's not what we're here to discuss tonight. So tonight is the public tree utility, which I have attached kind of how this was drafted. I sent this on to Lynch Dallas to have a conversation about this, and the word that was very problematic to them was the word utility, as that is based in Iowa code with what you can establish as a utility or what is considered as a utility. And ultimately, with a few different go-arounds, there doesn't seem to be any way to mount the challenge of getting around the word utility and needing to tie that back to Iowa code. He did advise that ultimately your citizens can establish a utility. So we're at the point where there's one way or there's another way of we just basically back burner and no further discussion, no implementation of this urban forest utility and then a corresponding urban or public tree management fee, or we consider putting this on a ballot for a future election, of which there are still 2 dates left in this calendar year, which that could be done at. So that's the direction that I'm looking for. What this means sort of if we don't have a public tree management fee is what we had previously talked about, is that we would change this sentence back to the language that we currently have, where the city would not be responsible for maintaining and trimming any public trees. So really talking about right-of-way trees, because public trees being in parks are already trees that we're responsible for. So that's the kind of the big change of what would be in an ordinance that would come before you. But there are some other changes to Chapter 58 that we have discussed here outside of these fees, which staff would really like to see move forward that have, you know, nothing to do with the fee side of things. So I'm hoping to get your direction tonight on how you would like to proceed with this and what can possibly come back to the next council meeting as a first reading of an amendment to Chapter 58.
Do you have any, having done the research and talking to Lynch, Dallas and all, do you have any way you'd like to sway the council to go on this one?
I think that, you know, there's just looking at, you know, we've talked about, nothing's been finalized, you haven't done the resolution or anything, but having a local option sales tax renewal measure on the ballot for November, I don't think that I would want to put two items on a ballot together at the same time. And so I think this is something that we could certainly set aside and move forward with the compost fee at this point, being part of what would come back as the language in a Chapter 58 amendment, and not move forward with a ballot measure at this time until we figure out what are those other priorities. I think we can all stand here and say local option sales tax does far more for this community than a $1.50 per month tree fee would do for the community.
Thank you. Okay, time for council reaction. Mike?
Jessica, I guess my question is, okay, if we don't move forward with a vote, where does the money come from to be able to do what we need to do?
So basically,
come out of road use tax?
Yeah, so any stump removal or hazardous tree removal, of which a tree in the right-of-way that is dead or diseased is the responsibility of the city. That is a state code thing, and that is codified in our ordinances. That would still exist. That would come out of road use tax. And so that's where we would continue to fund all of our stump removals out of moving forward until the project was complete. Anything that is parks related would come out of the general fund. And as a reminder too, related to this, we did have $27,500 approximately of some staff time that would remain in the general fund. Again, to go back to what Councilmember Thompson said, that's not working on resolving the deficit, but again, I don't know that, I think that local option sales tax, again, in thinking about the bigger picture, local option sales tax is the more important revenue source to the city to see renewed by the voters than this would be. And that we can figure out the general fund as we start having budget conversations for the next fiscal year much sooner than December, January timeframe.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So you'd mentioned there's two potential dates. When would that other date be? The next November?
September, city elections can be held in, I think it's the second Tuesday in September of 2022, as well as then the November general election.
But that would be a special election then, correct?
It would be a
we would have to pay for that.
It would be a special election that we would have to pay for. I would guess we'd be in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $8,000. Anything that would be on the November election, November ballot, there's no extra charge because it is a countywide election.
Other input from the council?
Your Honor?
Yes.
Jessica, what's your fear of putting them both on the November general? Is it that they'll both get voted down?
No, I think it's just that, you know, people can only tolerate so much, and that this is the easy one to say no to. And so that would be my thought of let's not do that. And I wouldn't want to jeopardize what we potentially have going on with local option sales tax and just have two issues that you're trying to provide information for at the same time that everybody's getting inundated with mailers for your, you know, your county and your statewide offices as well.
It would get lost in there.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Your
You
Honor.
bet. Yep. Any other councilors wish to comment? Otherwise, we can open it up to the public. It is open to the public. And on this one, if you don't get any direction, what happens?
Well, I guess what I'm looking for would be a motion to bring back the revised Chapter 58, including only the compost fee and basically changing the the language related to the maintenance of the right-of-way trees back to adjacent property owner responsibility, so that we can at least move forward with that aspect of things.
Okay. There you heard your motion option.
Well, I would like to see it on the ballot, but it doesn't matter to me when it's on the, well, it's obviously got to be on the ballot if we move forward. I don't think putting it off is going to change people's view of it, so I would make a motion that the tree fee be on the November ballot with the lost and with all the other, the election for the House seats and Senate and everything.
Second.
I think we've had the discussion. Anybody feel the need for further discussion up here?
Yeah, I'd like to make further discussion.
Okay.
I don't think it's good to have on the same ballot. I think there's just going to be too much noise out there that people won't know what they're voting for. So that's what I'm afraid of.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
When would we have to make that decision? Doesn't have to be tonight. When?
No, so we just have to provide notice to the county auditor's office 46 days in advance of the election. I think in my memo, I put that if you wanted to do the September election, that we would have to make that notification no later than July 29th, which means the latest date you had to approve a resolution with ballot language would be the July 25th regular council meeting.
So I would be in recommendation of reverting back the language, including the compost, but knowing we can bring this back up for discussion. I mean, we have time to vet this.
So we have a motion on the floor, right?
In a second.
Yeah.
So we'll vote on it.
So other input though by the council about the motion pending? Anybody from the public need to comment further? Let's roll call this one.
Hoop.
What are we voting on, Gary's?
Yeah, this is Gary's motion to put it on the November ballot, including the trees.
No.
Isom.
No.
Kell.
No.
Lottiehoff.
No.
Schneider.
No.
Thompson.
Yes.
Walker.
No.
Okay. That motion failed. Is there another motion to give staff direction?
I would move to update the language as proposed. Leave it at that for future conversation on the tree fee.
Okay. And as best I can summarize that, it is to go forward with the compost, but put on the skids the trees. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second.
Let's call the roll.
Lottiehoff.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Thompson.
No.
Walker.
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Kell.
Yes.
Okay, that carried as well, so staff has the direction there. Very good. Thank you. And we are at time, we're now at that time for public comment. Item J, the last one, that's with this proviso that members of the public may make comments on any item not on the agenda. At this time, you have to again approach the mic, state your name and address, limit your comments to 3 minutes unless longer is authorized by me, and direct your comments to the mayor and council as a whole. The mayor and councilors are not allowed to engage in discussion or debate on those items because maybe we'd violate the open meetings laws. The microphone is open for public comment.
Good evening, City Council of Marshalltown, Iowa. My name is Monica Guzman, and I'm out here from Los Angeles, California, getting to know this historic city that got its start with Henry Anson. Another famous individual from this town is Adrian Constantine Anson, also known as Cap Anson, the original American baseball superstar. My intention was to find the site where he built a makeshift baseball field. He said that he took an axe and chopped down a couple of trees on the public square surrounded by a white picket fence. And I believe that that is where your current courthouse sits. So for me, it was very exciting to find it. I found out that Marshalltown, Iowa exists when I read his autobiography 2 years ago. And so we went to visit his grave on Easter in Chicago, Illinois. That was his birthday. And given that Iowa's on the way back to California, I was like, you know what? It's right there. We're going to regret it if we don't stop by. So I'm going to admit that I had no idea what I was going to find here. I felt that it would be more rural than it is. I'm very, very shocked to find a city that is, or a town that is obviously leaning woke, that is obviously leaning toward cancel culture, that sounds more like something, a council meeting you would hear in Sacramento than in just a Midwest geographic location. I thought you guys would be more about your people, you would care more about your community. I'm so shocked that you're gonna, that you're working to tax them so much, given the horrific natural disasters that you guys have experienced. I would expect that you would look out for them a little bit more. Toward the downtown area, there's still houses that are in bad shape. I've spoken with your bus drivers, I've spoken with people at restaurants and food joints and stuff like that. They let me know that some of these homes haven't been rebuilt because the lumber prices went up. And then we had the pandemic, and then you guys had 2 natural disasters that were like, whoa, right? I mean, we have earthquakes, and we have wildfires now, and we have our droughts. But I cannot imagine undergoing a tornado and then what followed afterwards. So I just hope that you guys lean on your history a little bit more. You look more toward the wisdom of Henry Anson as opposed to the unfortunate culture that has taken over this country, which has nothing to do with American culture. It's, again, we're just, the country's being led by a completely different culture that wants to legalize the worst aspects of society, such as drugs, which leads to higher crime, higher homelessness. That is definitely not something that I would want, again, for such a historic town like Marshalltown, Iowa. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Microphone's still open.
This has been a year that people have come to our town from California. Oh, I forgot to say my name. Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. Thank you so much for visiting. Yes, we do have an immense number of history. I'm very familiar with what she spoke about. Now, what I wanted to bring that wasn't on the agenda, I want to let persons know that the overlay of the street that goes north and south, South 2nd Avenue, I took pictures with my camera. That street overlay is washing away. And it's right down to the old bricks that used to be there. And I wanted to bring that to the attention of all the council. And I would have brought pictures, but I just didn't quite have time to get them copied to bring to present to everybody. But we have had changes in employees that have been doing public works and all these things, and it's hard to even know anymore these days whom one really needs to speak to, because I have been told certain persons only report to our city administrator. So I just wanted to bring it to attention, and I plan to go to my individual council people and take the proper steps and contact people at large, because we do have a lot of city street overlay that is washing away. And I know the city is in debt. Thank you for your time.
Mic is still open. Anyone else?
My name is Dean Vaughn. I live at 1712 West Lincoln Way here in Marshalltown. I have a couple of issues, and the reason I'm here tonight is I need your help. Before I ask you to help, I want to brag on you a little bit, though. Thank you to each and every one of you for the service that you do for the community. It's nice to see that there's a mix of people with different color hair serving our population, so thank you all for doing what you do. Secondly, Roger, you look a lot better than the last time I saw you.
Is there a second to that motion?
We own a financial services business that's located at 104 South First Street and the office building there. On February 7th, we came into the office to find the first floor flooded completely. No broken pipes, no running water, no nothing, just water everywhere, which had come up through the stools and a bathtub in one of the bathrooms. Couldn't figure it out. We got a hold of the plumbers, they checked the line, there's nothing blocking the line, we can't figure out where it's in. Most of the water that backed up, fortunately, was not sewer water. It was pretty clean water. So we're trying to figure out how to fix this and not having anything. And then 2 weeks later, we come into the office and we find the same thing, except this time we've got smoke, fire, and it was after the fire up on Main Street. So somehow that water got from a storm sewer into a sanitary sewer and backed up into our office. That resulted in having to tear out all of our flooring, et cetera. We're obviously afraid to put it back, although we desperately need it because we don't know what caused it and how it's going to go wrong. We did find out that the first occurrence, apparently the city had condemned a building on the corner of Main and First. And apparently the water lines didn't get shut off for whatever reason. Anyway, they froze and filled up that basement with water, and our sewer department or water department pumped out the water in that building onto the street. So we figured somehow, again, the water got from the storm sewer into a closed, what should be a closed sanitary sewer. So that's the one issue that I'm here. I did talk to Jessica. She sent me an insurance form immediately. I filled it out. I've heard from nobody since. Last year, there was a lot of renovation in our area on the parking lot behind the Tremont. A lot of that, for some reason, involved people boring holes in our sidewalk in front of our building, painting red lines, yellow lines, blue lines, and white lines of arrows and numbers, et cetera, et cetera. It looked like somebody had vandalized the sidewalk. I kept waiting for somebody to show up and do something about that, and that was not the case. I did bird dog it a little bit, and I can't remember if it's 3Q or Q3, I believe, that did the coring work for the city. I called them 3 times, nothing. It basically ruined the sidewalks. So I've got 6 holes bored about this big that they filled with dirt and gravel rather than concrete. It's a crappy job. It should not be permitted for somebody that we're paying to do things like that, to do something to some property owner's property and then go away and say, tough. I don't know what to do about the water thing. That's greatly concerned me. I've had people who were in the construction business say, maybe when they were boring, they knocked a hole in one of the 2 lines that allowed the water to get into the sanitary sewer. I don't know that. I don't have the ability to figure that out. So I come to you today to say, help me figure it out. Who can we talk to? What can we do? Because I want to put my building back together, but I can't do it if it's going to happen again in 2 weeks. So here I stand. I don't know what course you can take, but I'm asking you to get on board and help me get this figured out. I also find out now that there's another business up the street a little bit that had a similar issue with water and 3Q or Q3, whoever it is. So I don't think I'm an isolated incident. And like I said, I'm here looking for help, support, and direction in any way I can so I can get my business put back together.
Dean, I missed the address of the business you're talking about.
104 South First Street. We're right across the street from Minuteman Copy Center.
Yep. Used to be where the Child Abuse Prevention Services building
Once upon a time, 100 years ago,
yeah,
they were
okay.
upstairs.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know the building on the alley there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, Your Honor, we will follow up as staff on this. I was not aware that there had not been a response back, but we do have the claim number, and so I'll provide that to Mr. Vaughn. And there is an explanation for why this happened, so we'll share that information with the council as well.
Okay, and when you think that might?
I'll give you this as soon as the meeting's over, that has the claim number and the contact on
Okay.
it with ICAP, so.
Yeah, they gave me that. I have that. With all
Okay.
due respect, I appreciate the offer, but what I'm looking for is a little more muscle. I'm looking for some, how did it happen so we can stop it? Because something isn't right. The water shouldn't go from a storm sewer into a closed sanitary sewer. So somewhere in the process, I'm told that the DNR has the ability, and I don't know this, but I was told that they have the camera ability to shoot that storm sewer.
We have that, and so we've done that. I'll follow up with you, as well as with our storm sewer superintendent. We'll follow up, as well as probably Public Works Director. I have everything that you're asking for that explains this in my email right now, and can provide that to you via copies tomorrow.
Okay? Excuse me for asking this, but why just now? I mean, why didn't I have that before?
I wasn't aware that you didn't have it before, so I apologize that there's miscommunication there, but I
Okay.
thought it had been explained.
Good.
so.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Could we have an update related to those items at the next council meeting, please?
Yeah, I'll give you an update before then, so I'll
Okay.
be able to share that information with you prior to that. So.
Okay. Thank you. And if no one else stands up or runs up to the microphone, let's call the meeting adjourned at, if I'm telling the time right now, 7:31 p.m. I think you won you did. You did 7:30. Oh, she did? You were 7:50? That's 7:45, so I guess I beat you.
You did.
Oh.